Tom wiped the condensation from his helmet's visor, squinting at the dent in his salvage ship's hull. The repair job would take another 30 minutes at least, and his oxygen gauge showed he shouldn't stay out much longer than that. Deep space maintenance wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills. Warning: 28% oxygen remaining, the suit's computer announced in its flat voice. Yeah, I hear you," Tom muttered, adjusting his magnetic boots on the hull. The vastness of space stretched around him, stars twinkling in the endless black. His small salvage ship, the Lucky Break, floated silently in the void between space stations. As he reached for his welding tool, something moved in the corner of his vision. Tom froze. Years of space work had taught him that unexpected movement outside your ship usually meant trouble. He turned slowly, his helmet lamp cutting through the darkness. At first, he saw nothing. Then, a glint of blue crystal caught his light. Tom's breath caught in his throat. Clinging to the back of his ship was a creature unlike anything he'd seen in his 15 years of space work. Its body was semi-transparent, like blue crystal, with a vaguely humanoid shape. The being trembled, pressing itself against the hull as if trying to hide. "Well, that's different," Tom said quietly. The creature's head snapped toward him, and he saw eyes, actual eyes, wide with fear. They were deep purple against the crystalline blue of its body. "Please," a voice whispered in his mind. "Please help. They're coming." Tom looked around quickly. His radar was clear, but that didn't mean much out here. "Who's coming?" he asked aloud, not sure if the creature could hear him through his suit. "Slave traders," the thought voice came again, trembling with fear. "They hunt my kind. Please, I beg you, help me." The sound of his oxygen alarm interrupted the moment. "Warning: 25% oxygen remaining. Return to ship advised." Tom cursed under his breath. He had maybe 20 minutes before he needed to head in. Company policy was clear about unauthorized passengers, especially alien ones. He could lose his license for this. But the fear in those purple eyes. A ping from his radar made the decision for him. 3 ships had just appeared at the edge of his range, moving fast. "Can you breathe our atmosphere?" Tom asked quickly. "Yes. Most atmospheres." "Right then." Tom reached out his hand. "Let's get you inside before we both end up in trouble." The crystalline being hesitated for just a moment, then grabbed his hand. Its touch was cool but not cold, and Tom could feel a slight vibration, like touching a tuning fork. "I'm Tom," he said as he helped the creature toward the airlock. "Got a name?" "In your language, the closest would be Blue." Tom smiled despite the situation. "Simple enough. Hold tight, Blue. Airlock's a bit small." They squeezed into the airlock together. As the chamber pressurized, Tom watched his radar. The 3 ships were getting closer, their trajectory leaving little doubt about their target. Once inside, Blue's crystalline form caught the ship's lights, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the walls. They stood there for a moment, Blue trembling slightly, Tom trying to figure out what he'd just gotten himself into. "Thank you," Blue whispered, both in Tom's mind and with a soft musical voice in the air. "I will serve you faithfully for this kindness." Tom shook his head as he removed his helmet. "No serving needed. We'll figure something out." He glanced at his radar screen. The pursuing ships were closing fast. "But first, we need to get out of here. Can you tell me more about these slave traders while I get us moving?" Blue's crystalline form pulsed with a soft light. "Yes, and perhaps I can help more than you know." The radar pinged again. 3 large ships, definitely not friendly, were now clearly on an intercept course. Tom's quiet repair job had just gotten a lot more interesting. Ship I engaging safety protocols. Unauthorized life form detected. Beginning containment procedures. Tom rushed to the control panel, cursing under his breath. He'd forgotten about the ship's automated security system. Red warning lights began flashing throughout the cabin. "Computer, override containment. Authorization code Tom 7 Delta 9. he shouted, his fingers flying over the controls. The last thing they needed was the ship trying to trap Blue in a force field while slave traders were bearing down on them. Blue stood in the corner, their crystalline form shimmering with anxiety. "I'm causing you trouble," they said softly. "Nothing I can't handle," Tom replied, finally getting the security system to stand down. He turned to his unexpected passenger. "But we need to move fast. Those ships are getting closer." The ship's main screen showed 3 large vessels approaching. They were sleek, black, and clearly built for hunting. Tom's salvage ship was made for picking up space junk, not outrunning predators. "I can help," Blue said, stepping forward. Their crystalline body caught the light, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the cabin walls. "My kind can connect with technology. If you allow it, I could interface with your ship's systems." Tom hesitated. Letting an unknown alien link with his ship's computer went against every safety regulation in the book. But those ships were getting closer, and his old salvage vessel wasn't exactly built for speed. "Will it hurt the ship?" he asked. "No, I promise. I can enhance your systems, make them work better than before." Another warning ping from the radar made the decision easier. "Do it," Tom said. Blue stepped toward the main console and placed their crystalline hands on its surface. Immediately, soft blue light began spreading through the ship's control panels. Tom watched in amazement as his usual displays transformed, becoming sharper and more detailed. "This is incredible," he whispered. His ship's normal readings were now overlaid with new information he'd never had access to before. Power systems he didn't even know existed were coming online. "Your ship has much untapped potential," Blue commented, their voice humming with energy. "Human technology is simple, but very sturdy, easy to enhance." The radar pinged again. The slave traders' ships were now close enough to get a good look at them. They were at least 5 times the size of Tom's vessel. "They're charging weapons," Blue said, fear creeping into their voice. Tom grinned. "Maybe so, but they don't know these shipping lanes like I do. Hold tight." He grabbed the controls, feeling something different in the way the ship responded. It was faster now, more agile. Blue's enhancements had turned his clunky salvage ship into something new. Tom aimed for a dense field of space debris ahead. Old satellite parts and abandoned ship fragments that he usually salvaged for parts. This was his territory. He knew every dangerous spinning piece of metal out there. "They're launching some kind of energy net," Blue warned. "Perfect timing," Tom said, diving the ship toward a particularly large chunk of old space station. At the last second, he cut the main engines and fired the maneuvering thrusters, sliding his ship behind the debris just as the energy net deployed. The net hit the space junk instead, sending crackling energy across its surface. The debris exploded into smaller pieces, creating an even denser field of dangerous fragments. "Clever," Blue said admiringly. "You used their own weapon to create more cover." Tom smiled as he weaved through the newly created obstacle course. "Sometimes the best tricks are the simple ones. Keep an eye on their positions for me." "Yes. They're having trouble following us through the debris field. Their ships are too large to maneuver safely at this speed." "Good." Tom's hands stayed steady on the controls. "But they won't give up easily. We need a better plan than just running." Blue's crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy. "I have an idea. But it's dangerous, and you'd have to trust me even more." Tom glanced at the alien who had turned his ordinary day into the craziest adventure of his life. "Well," he said with a slight smile, "I'm already breaking about 50 regulations. Might as well break a few more." Behind them, the slave traders' ships began picking their way through the debris field, their powerful engines pushing aside the smaller pieces of space junk. The chase was far from over. "What's this idea of yours?" Tom asked, keeping his eyes on the debris field ahead. His hands were steady on the controls, but sweat beaded on his forehead as he dodged another piece of spinning metal. Blue's crystalline form glowed brighter. Your ship has maintenance tunnels running through its hull. They're small, too small for most beings to use, but I can flow through them like water. And, Tom prompted, making a sharp turn around a broken satellite. If I spread myself through these tunnels, I can boost your ship's power even more. Turn every part of the hull into an energy conductor. Blue paused, but it means leaving myself completely vulnerable, trusting you entirely. The radar screamed a warning. One of the slave ships had broken through the debris field and was closing fast. We're about to have company, Tom muttered. Do it. Blue's form began to shift, becoming more liquid than crystal. They flowed toward a maintenance hatch like shimmering water, their voice echoing in Tom's mind. Whatever happens, don't stop flying. As Blue disappeared into the ship's infrastructure, Tom felt the change immediately. Every system surged with new power. His displays blazed brighter, and he could feel the ship responding to his smallest touch. Energy weapon charging, the ship's AI warned. Tom didn't just hear the warning. He felt it, like a tingle in his bones. Somehow, he knew exactly where the shot would land. He rolled the ship sideways, and a beam of bright energy passed harmlessly beneath them. Blue, you okay? He called out. Yes, Blue's voice came through the ship's speakers, surrounding him. I am everywhere in the ship now. I can feel everything. 3 more ships approaching from Sector 7. Tom checked his radar. Sure enough, 3 more slave ships had jumped in. 7 hunters against 1 salvage ship. They really want you back, don't they? Tom said, diving deeper into the debris field. My kind are rare. Valuable. Blue's voice held a mix of sadness and anger. They use us to enhance their ships, but they don't understand. We can do so much more when we choose to help freely. Tom was learning that firsthand. His ship was moving like never before, sliding through gaps in the debris that should have been too small, reacting faster than any normal vessel could. An idea struck him. Blue, these maintenance tunnels, they run through the cargo bay doors too, right? Yes. Why? Tom grinned. Because I'm a salvage worker, and I think it's time we did some salvaging. He spun the ship around, facing the approaching slave ships. Their black hulls gleamed menacingly, weapons charging. Open cargo bay doors on my mark, Tom ordered, and be ready to give me everything the engines have got. They're firing. Blue's warning came just as multiple energy beams lanced toward them. Tom jerked the controls, dancing between the deadly beams. Now, cargo doors. The massive doors swung open. Years of experience had taught Tom exactly what would happen next. The sudden change in the ship's aerodynamics, combined with the debris field's natural pull, created a powerful vacuum effect. Pieces of space junk began flying toward their open cargo bay. But Tom wasn't trying to catch them. He was using them as weapons. With Blue's enhanced control, they turned their ship into a giant slingshot, redirecting the flying debris straight at their pursuers. The slave ships scattered, their formation breaking as they tried to avoid the barrage of high-speed space junk. One ship took a direct hit from a large piece of satellite, its shields flaring bright before failing. Close doors, Tom commanded, already spinning the ship back around. Give me full power to the engines. Their ship shot forward like a bullet, leaving the disorganized slave ships behind. Through his connection with Blue, Tom could feel the surge of triumph running through the ship's systems. That, Blue said, their voice filled with wonder, was not something they taught us humans could do. Tom laughed. That's because nobody ever asks us what we can do. They just assume their fancy technology makes them better. But they weren't safe yet. Despite the damage, the slave ships were regrouping. And Tom knew they were running out of debris field to hide in. Any more bright ideas? Blue asked. Actually, Tom said, eyeing a distant structure on his enhanced display, I think I see exactly where we need to go next. The asteroid mining facility loomed ahead, its massive drills and processing platforms casting long shadows in the starlight. Tom guided his ship toward it, remembering something from his early days as a maintenance worker. "Blue, you still with me?" he asked, checking his displays. "Yes," Blue's voice came through the ship's speakers, "but the slave ships are catching up. Their engines are much more powerful than ours." Tom nodded. "That's what I'm counting on. See that mining facility? I used to repair their electromagnetic pumps, and I remember a funny little problem they had." Through their connection, he could feel Blue's curiosity. The aliens' presence had spread throughout the ship's systems, making everything work better than it ever had. But even with Blue's help, they couldn't outrun their pursuers forever. "What kind of problem?" Blue asked. "Those pumps use massive electromagnetic fields to pull metallic ore from the asteroids," Tom explained, flying closer to the facility. "Sometimes they'd malfunction and create field reversals, caused all sorts of trouble with nearby ship systems." He could almost feel Blue's understanding dawn through their connection. "And the slave ships are packed full of fancy electronic systems," Tom finished with a grin. "Much more vulnerable than my simple old salvage ship." The radar pinged urgently. All 7 slave ships were closing in, forming a wide net to catch them. Their black hulls gleamed with active weapon systems, ready to fire. "Tom," Blue's voice held a note of worry. "They're charging something bigger than before. Some kind of capture beam." Perfect timing. Tom's hands flew over the controls. "I need you to do something for me. When I give the word, pump all our power into the shield systems. Every bit you can get. But then we'll have nothing left for weapons or engines. Trust me," Tom said softly. "Like I trusted you." There was a pause, then he felt the ship's systems shift, ready to redirect power on his command. The mining facility's massive electromagnetic pumps were right ahead now. Tom could see them pulling streams of metallic ore from the nearby asteroids. He checked his radar one last time. The slave ships were exactly where he wanted them. Spread out in a circle around his ship, all their systems powered up to maximum. "They're firing the capture beam," Blue warned. "Now." Tom yanked his ship into a spin and cut the main engines. Shields to maximum. He felt Blue redirect every scrap of power to their shields. The capture beam from the slave ships hit them at the same moment they passed between the facility's electromagnetic pumps. What happened next was exactly what Tom had hoped for. The capture beam, combined with their shields at full power, created a massive electromagnetic pulse. It interacted with the mining pumps' fields, causing them to reverse violently. The effect was spectacular. The slave ships, with all their advanced systems running at full power, were caught completely unprepared. Their engines stuttered and died. Weapon systems went dark. Even their artificial gravity failed. Tom's simpler ship, with its basic systems and Blue's protection, weathered the electromagnetic storm far better. As soon as they were clear of the effect, he fired up the engines again. "That," Blue said with something like awe in their voice, "was incredible. How did you know that would work?" Tom laughed, watching the slave ships drift helplessly. "Because 10 years ago, I was the one who had to repair ships after this exact thing happened by accident. Sometimes old experience is better than new technology." Through their connection, he could feel Blue's amazement and joy spreading through the ship's systems. The alien's crystalline form began flowing back out of the maintenance tunnels, reforming beside him. "They'll recover eventually," Blue said, looking at the drifting slave ships. "But it will take time. Their systems are much more complex than yours." "Then we better not stick around." Tom set a course away from the mining facility. "I know a few places we can hide while we figure out our next move." Blue's crystalline form pulsed with soft light. "I've never seen anyone fight like that before, using simple things in clever ways." "That's what humans do best," Tom said with a smile. "We work with what we have." But as they flew away from the disabled slave ships, Tom knew this wasn't over. The slavers would be back, probably with even more ships. They needed a better plan than just running and hiding. Fortunately, he was starting to get some ideas about that too. 3 hours after the electromagnetic pulse incident, Tom sat at his control panel, drawing on an old paper notepad. Blue watched with fascination as the human sketched out rough diagrams. "I don't understand," Blue said, their crystalline form glowing softly in the dim light of the cabin. "Why not use the computer to make plans?" Tom tapped his pencil against the paper. "Because sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Computers can be hacked, tracked, or copied. But this," he held up the notepad, "this is just paper and pencil." The ship's radar was quiet for now, but they both knew it wouldn't last. The slave ships would have repaired their systems by now and called for backup. "Tell me more about their ships," Tom said, starting a new sketch. "How do they usually catch your kind?" Blue moved closer, their crystalline body casting rainbow patterns on the notepad. "They use energy nets, like you saw before. And they have dampening fields that can weaken us, make it hard for us to maintain our form." Tom nodded, adding notes to his drawing. "But they need their fancy systems for all that, right? Their advanced technology." "Yes. Without their systems, Blue paused, realization dawning in their voice. "They're actually quite helpless." "Exactly." Tom grinned. "And that's their weakness. They rely too much on complex technology. But humans, we're used to things going wrong. We plan for it." He spread out his drawings on the control panel. They showed simple mechanical traps and tricks, using basic physics instead of advanced technology. "Look here," Tom pointed to one sketch. "Your people can flow through small spaces, right? And you can enhance mechanical systems, not just electronic ones." "Yes to both," Blue confirmed, studying the drawings with growing interest. "Then here's what we're going to do." Tom explained his plan, pointing to different parts of the sketches. It was simple, almost primitive by the slave trader's standards. But that was exactly why it might work. As they discussed the details, the radar suddenly pinged. Blue rushed to the scanner, their form pulsing with anxiety. 4 ships, they reported, different from before. "These look older." Tom checked the readings and broke into a wide smile. "Those aren't slave ships. Those are human salvage vessels. Must have picked up our distress signal from the mining facility." He opened a communication channel. "This is the lucky break. Anyone out there?" "Tom, that you old space rat." A friendly voice crackled through the speakers. "We picked up some weird readings from the mining facility. You okay out there?" "Getting better by the minute, Jack," Tom replied. "But I could use some help. Got a bit of a situation with some slave traders." There was a pause on the line. When Jack spoke again, his voice was serious. "Slavers, huh? Say no more. We're with you. Nobody runs a slave operation in our shipping lanes." Blue watched in amazement as more signals appeared on the radar. Word was spreading through the human ships in the area. Salvage vessels, maintenance craft, mining ships, all of them ordinary working ships, crewed by ordinary humans. "I don't understand," Blue said softly. "They don't even know me. Why would they help?" Tom smiled. "Because that's another thing about humans. We don't like bullies, and we especially don't like slavers." He turned back to his drawings, adding new elements now that they had more ships to work with. "You know what's better than one simple trick?" he asked Blue. "What?" "A whole bunch of simple tricks, all working together." Tom's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Your slavers think they're so advanced. Wait until they face a fleet of human maintenance workers who are really, really annoyed." Blue's crystalline form brightened with hope. Through their connection with the ship, Tom could feel their growing confidence, ready to show them what happens when they mess with humans. Tom asked, picking up his notepad. "Yes," Blue answered, their voice firm. "I think I'm beginning to understand why they never succeeded in enslaving your people." Tom laughed. "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet. Now let me show you what we humans call improvised engineering." The space around Sector 7 was getting crowded. 12 slave ships had arrived, their black hulls gleaming with advanced weapon systems. But surrounding them, In a loose circle were 23 human vessels of various shapes and sizes. Most were salvage ships and maintenance vessels, none of them built for combat. Tom stood at his control panel, watching the slave ships with calm eyes. "Everyone ready?" he asked over the shared communication channel. "Ready here," Jack's voice came through. "Got my magnetic grapples warmed up." "Mining lasers charge," another voice added. "Maintenance drones in position," a third chimed in. Blue watched in amazement as the human ships moved into position. None of them were military vessels, but each captain knew exactly what to do with their work equipment. "They're broadcasting a warning," Blue said, monitoring the communications. "They're threatening to destroy all ships that interfere with their property retrieval." The last words were bitter. Tom smiled. "Well, that's not very neighborly of them." He opened the channel to all human ships. "Remember, folks, just like we planned. Nothing fancy. Keep it simple." The slave ships moved first, their energy weapons charging with a bright glow. But before they could fire, Jack's salvage ship released a cloud of metallic debris, scrap metal from 1,000 repair jobs. The energy weapons fired, but the beams scattered through the cloud of metal fragments, splitting into harmless lights. At the same time, mining lasers, designed to cut through asteroids, began slicing through the slave ship's sensor arrays. "Now," Tom commanded. 20 maintenance drones, usually used for hull repairs, swarmed toward the slave ships. Each drone carried a simple magnetic device, built from spare parts. As they attached to the slave ships' hulls, they created localized magnetic fields that played havoc with the advanced targeting systems. "Their shields are fluctuating," Blue reported, their crystalline form pulsing with excitement. "They've never faced anything like this." "That's because they expect fancy technology," Tom said, guiding his ship through the chaos. "They don't expect a bunch of repair workers with spare parts and too much creativity." The slave ships tried to launch their energy nets, but the nets tangled in the debris field Jack had created. When they attempted to use their dampening fields, the magnetic interference from the drones made the fields collapse. "My turn," Tom said quietly. He nodded to Blue, who flowed back into the ship's systems. Together, they executed the maneuver they'd practiced. The lucky break spun through space, releasing a trail of specially prepared maintenance fluid, normally used for lubricating airlock mechanisms. In the vacuum of space, the fluid froze instantly, creating a trail of ice crystals. 3 slave ships fired their engines to pursue, but the ice crystals were sucked into their intakes. Their sophisticated engines, designed for maximum power, couldn't handle the simple frozen particles. Warning lights flashed across their hulls as systems began to fail. "Would you look at that?" Jack's voice came through, filled with satisfaction. "Seems their fancy ships don't like a bit of frozen grease." The remaining slave ships tried to regroup, but they were surrounded by humans who knew every trick in the maintenance manual and were inventing new ones on the spot. Mining ships used their tractor beams to fling asteroids. Repair vessels welded debris to sensor arrays. Salvage ships tangled energy weapons in old cable nets. "They're retreating," Blue announced suddenly. "Their flagship is signaling withdrawal." Sure enough, the slave ships were pulling back, their formation broken. Their once sleek hulls were now covered in makeshift traps, frozen fluid, and magnetic disruptors. "Should we pursue?" someone asked over the channel. "Nah," Tom replied, watching the slave ships flee. "Let them go, but make sure they remember what happened here." Blue reformed beside Tom, their crystalline body glowing with joy. "I've never seen them defeated like this. Never imagined it was possible." "That's because they forgot something important," Tom said, looking at the gathered human ships. "Fancy technology isn't everything. Sometimes all you need is simple solutions and people willing to help each other." The slave ships disappeared into deep space, leaving behind a scene that would become legend in the shipping lanes. The day when simple human workers and their basic tools had beaten the most advanced slave fleet in the sector. But Tom knew this was more than just a victory. It was the beginning of something new. 1 month after the battle with the slave ships, Tom sat in the Space Traffic Control office of Carter Station, watching as officials reviewed his unusual request. "Let me get this straight," the station administrator said, adjusting her glasses. "You want to register your ship under joint ownership with an alien?" "That's right," Tom replied. Blue stood beside him, their crystalline form drawing curious looks from other people in the office. The administrator tapped her screen. "We've never done anything like this before, but after what happened in Sector 7, she smiled slightly. "Well, let's just say a lot of things are changing." News of the battle had spread quickly through human space. The story of how a group of maintenance workers and their jury-rigged tools had defeated advanced slave ships had captured everyone's imagination. But more importantly, it had changed how humans and Blue's people saw each other. The slave traders have marked this entire sector as extremely hazardous, Blue said, their voice carrying a note of pride. They warned their ships to avoid any contact with human vessels. "Can't handle a little frozen maintenance fluid, eh?" Tom grinned. The administrator tried to hide her smile. "Well, your paperwork seems to be in order," she said, stamping several documents. "Congratulations, you're now the first registered human-alien joint ownership of a salvage vessel in our sector." As they left the office, other workers in the station stopped to wave or nod respectfully. The story of the lucky break had become something of a legend. "I still don't understand why you wanted to make me co-owner," Blue said as they walked toward their ship. "I promised to serve you, but you've never treated me like a servant." Tom stopped walking and turned to face his friend. "That's exactly why. You're not a servant, Blue. You're my partner. We work better together as equals, just like we proved in that battle." Through their time together, they had learned much from each other. Blue had shown Tom how to enhance his ship's systems in ways he never imagined possible. And Tom had taught Blue about human ingenuity, about solving problems with whatever tools were available. Besides, Tom added with a smile, "Who else is going to help me with my new business idea?" They reached the lucky break, now modified with both human and crystalline technology. The ship looked mostly the same from the outside, but inside it was a perfect blend of both their abilities. "3 more of my kind have requested asylum in human space," Blue said as they boarded. "They want to learn how to work with humans as partners." "Good," Tom replied, settling into his pilot's seat. "Because we got 7 repair stations asking if we can teach them how to work with your people. Seems everybody wants to learn how to enhance their systems the right way, through cooperation, not slavery." Blue's form glowed with happiness as they merged partially with the ship's systems, not as a slave, but as a willing partner. Displays came to life, showing their next job, a tricky repair mission that would need both their skills. "You know," Blue said thoughtfully, "when I first grabbed onto your ship and begged for help, I thought I was asking to be saved. I didn't realize I was actually taking the first step toward changing everything." Tom checked their course, smiling at how smoothly the controls responded with Blue's help. "That's the funny thing about helping others. Sometimes you end up making things better for everyone." The lucky break lifted off from Carter Station, its systems humming with a perfect harmony of human and crystalline technology working together. As they headed out into space, other ships called out greetings, both to the human captain and his alien partner. "Ready for another adventure?" Tom asked. Blue's voice came through both the speakers and Tom's mind, full of warmth and friendship. "Always ready, partner. After all, who knows what other impossible things we might do together." The lucky break accelerated into deep space, carrying with it the promise of a future where 2 very different species had found something better than servitude or slavery. They had found true partnership, built on trust, respect, and the simple human belief that helping others was always the right choice. The end.